Hey, Coach Chris here, coming to you again from the Red Chair. We're going to have a discussion today on one of my favorite entries from the Red Chair experience. And so let's just dive into it. The entry is called When You Survive This. When you survive this, it will not be because someone said you could, although it's good to be reminded from time to time. And when you survive this, it will not be because you had the money in the bank or a roof over your head, because there may come a time when you have neither, and still you will survive this. That quote is by Peter Tchaikovsky, and it's a short story. It's an excerpt from a short story that he wrote. As I wrote this, I'm going to read a little bit of the entry here so that you can see what this is about, what it's like. I found out a couple of days ago that another best friend of a best friend of mine lost his battle with mental illness. It reminds me that the struggle is real on a daily basis. My friend talked to him the morning of his death, shared what he could, but it was not enough to overcome the demons. We all have our own unique struggles. Just because you struggle, it's not a matter of, just because your struggle is not a matter of life or death does not make it less important. It is the reality that you are living within right now. When we take the mindset that when you survive this, we will have a stronger chance of getting through whatever we may deal with. It could be a job loss, a relationship that didn't turn out the way we wanted, or even a test in school that we failed. We all have a story to tell, stories of how we survived this or that. Some are more dramatic than others, but what a great story to tell. This is how I survived that. What are you struggling with right now? Can you tell yourself, when you get through this, you will have a great story or strength to tell, and maybe it'll help someone else survive this? Today, I will remember the phrase, when you survive this, so I can look to the future and see the strength that I will have as a result. I will see the person I will become and know that I will be able to share this with others on how I survived. That's, again, one of the entries from when you survive this. And I was talking with somebody earlier about this week about what that looks like. And as I get the chance to talk to friends and family and clients, we run across these things and we find that there are times in our lives when we really need to understand that phrase, when you survive this. So I did a little digging. I did a little bit deeper search, as you probably know. And for those of you who don't, I'll go ahead and share this with you. My brother passed away in September of 19 from suicide. And he was a very upbeat person, very giving, very outgoing. People were always fun or excited to be around him because of the person that he was, and the I don't know, the outgiving, the outpouring of love that he had for everyone. And so this kind of came as a shock when he decided to take his own life. And there weren't really any signs there of depression or mental health issues, though there were little peaks here and there, right? Because of the way that we grew up in a family where we didn't talk about our feelings. We didn't talk about our struggles. We didn't like talking about us a whole lot. In fact, we liked talking about other people and how we could help them and how we could give to them and make them feel better about who they were and what they did and how things were for them. So that didn't surprise me. It wasn't like there was this big glaring symbol that said, hey, I'm struggling with depression, or I'm having mental health issues. But what I did is I dug a little deeper and I looked at some studies that were done about depression, and is it genetic, and where does it come from, and how does it all work? And so I wanted to share a few of those things with you today, because I think that they're critical. I think they're really important to understand, and maybe will help others like myself who've gone through this and have dealt with this and struggled with this, as to maybe the guilt that you feel in saying, man, I wish I would have known. I would have done this. I would have said that. I would have done these other things. I would have been there for them in such a way, or done such and such. And the reality is we're left with the ripple effect, right? We're left with this, potentially this guilt that says, I could have done this. I should have done that. And we can very much take on that responsibility to think, hey, I've got, I'm so much stronger, or I could have done this for them. The reality is there may not have been anything you could have done or said that would have helped. And so that's why I said I dug a little bit deeper, and I wanted to dive into this a little bit and share some things that I found with you. So, is depression genetic? There are some signs that say it can be. And that's the key there. I think that we have to understand that it can be. Now, let me preface all of this by saying I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not even anybody in the psychological world in terms of study and all that other stuff. That is not my major, but however, or my area of study. But I have done some looking up of things, and I don't have by any means a comprehensive knowledge of this. These are just things that I found fascinating, and I wanted to share with you. So on that, here's the thing to understand. Is depression genetic? Yes and no. And some of the studies that I looked at and found were that as much as 40% of the depression makeup that we have can be genetic. 60% or more is actually situational or environmental. And we'll get to that in just a second, what that means. So for one, is there a single depression gene? No, there's no such thing as a single depression gene. In fact, what they found in these studies is that there's about 80 different genes that can contribute to or are a part of this thing that we call depression. Now, here's the interesting piece. I looked at that and I was like, holy mackerel, 80 genes associated with depression. Do you know how many genes make up the human genome? More than 20,000. Now, I look at that and I go, okay, 80 into 20,000, for those of you not math majors, nor was I did a calculation on it. It comes out to 4 1,000ths. 4 1,000ths. Think about that for a second. I'm not taking away from it, but that's pretty small. Okay. So that's one thing. The other thing, some of the other things that are only determined, and I'm reading this from the study that was done. Some things are only determined by nature / genetics, such as eye color, while some things are determined by only nurture, such as which high school a person goes to. Most characteristics result from a combination of the two, nature and nurture, right? Such as whether or not an individual will develop depression at some point in their life. So it's a combination, right? It's the environment that we're growing up in, or that we've been a part of, or certain factors that come into our lives. So now here's an interesting thing. Clinical depression does run in family lines. That is more hereditary. So if there's clinical depression, then you need to look and find the warning signs that are a part of that, right? But that's not something that I'm aware of that my brother struggled with, was clinical depression. Though he had times when he felt this way. I've had times when I felt this way. And so I understand this, this feeling of depression and what it looks like. So depression and heredity, what does it mean? So based on extensive studies on large numbers of people with depression, it appears that the hereditary of depression is about 42% for women and 29% for men, meaning that it's more prevalent in women and is carried through the female genes. So you've got to look at that and understand that if you're a female and you're struggling with depression, your likelihood is, well, as a female, your likelihood to be depressed is actually higher than it is as a male. That doesn't take away from it. It just means that you have a higher propensity towards it. So again, things to kind of know and understand from the studies that have been done. But it says that one of the things you want to do is learn the signs of depression so that you'll be able to quickly identify these symptoms in themselves and family members, in yourself and family members. Take measures to improve your resilience, your hardiness, and vulnerability to stressors, such as learning better coping skills and mechanisms, or attending counseling in times of severe stress, right? Or when you're feeling more stressed than other times, make sure that you're getting some help, professional help, to get these things help, and get yourself some help out on those things. See a doctor early on if you feel that you may be developing depression. That's going to be critical as well. As we said already, there's no one depression gene. Other things, so environmental and other factors. Genetics only determine an individual's predisposition and how likely they are to develop depression. The rest is determined by the individual's environment. And I thought this was really interesting because a lot of times we don't think about the environment that we're in. We don't think about all the stressors that are in our life or what we're going through or what's going on. The environmental causes of depression are those things that make up individual experiences and exposure in life. The most significant of these include, there's 4 different areas: childhood trauma, life stresses. So they can include things such as financial stress, life transitions, grief and loss, rumination, overall health. And I thought this was really interesting. Overall health, nutritional status, especially while the brain is developing up until the age 25, as well as the individual's resilience, hardiness, and vulnerability to adverse conditions. Illness is one other area. So the 4 areas, again, childhood trauma, life stresses, overall health, and then illness. Certain illnesses are strongly associated with depression, and some medications are actually known to induce depression. We kind of make light of all of the disclaimers that you hear when the drugs are introduced, and right, almost everyone I can think of always talks about depression could be a possibility of a side effect of one of the drugs. So why am I talking about this, and why am I bringing all this up? When my brother passed away, it was a very challenging thing for me. There were certain things that I didn't want to talk about. I didn't want to, I guess, admit or feel a part of. And so there were certain things that I didn't say, or I wouldn't talk about, I wouldn't go around. I was asked today even by some close friends of mine, do I feel more comfortable talking about the situation with my brother and his death and everything around that? And I would tell you I am. I'm much more comfortable talking about it. When it first happened, obviously it was a huge shock. I wasn't prepared for that. I didn't think that my brother was capable of that. And I'll be honest, one of my children asked me when I shared the news about their uncle passing away, they asked me if I was capable of doing that. And I had to sit and think about that for a second. But the answer I gave her was as honest and as raw as I think I had been in a while. And I said, yes, I think we're all capable of this if we don't talk and we don't, if we're not open about our emotions and about the things that are going on in our life. And so this situation with my brother taught me a lot about dealing with my emotions and dealing with the things that were going on in my life. One of the things I talk about in the Red Chair is how grief is something that will come and go on its own. I was told that by a counselor, and I fully believe that. Grief will come when it wants, and it will go when it wants. And we have the opportunity to either try and push it away or to let it wash over us, much like a shower or the ice bucket challenge that happened years ago, right? Where people were dumping water over their head and they literally just let it wash over them. Grief is like that. It will wash over us if we allow it to. When we sit in the feelings and we feel what we think, what is happening with us and what's going on, right? And that's okay. We have to do that. We have to allow it to do that. Years ago, I used to believe that and tell people that don't slow down, don't look back, don't just keep moving forward in your life, keep running forward in your life. Because if you turn around and you look at what's happening behind you, if you look at your past, it'll catch up with you. That was my short-sightedness, my misunderstanding of how to deal with emotions and how to deal with feelings and how to deal with your past. And that was true. If you are not willing to deal with your past, then guess what? Don't stop. Don't turn around. Don't look at it. But do yourself a favor and stop and turn around and look at it and face it and let it wash over you. That may not seem like fun because it's not, but it's necessary. So again, why do I say all this? Why are we having this conversation? Why am I telling you about this? I think it's important for all of us to understand when we have tragedy, when we have loss in our life, whether it's a loved one, a job, a relationship, um, it could simply be that we lost something that was very dear to us, and it may be an object that meant something to us. It may have been an award or something passed down from a friend or a family member. When we lose things, or when we are grieving from the loss, we have to allow that to work through us. And when we allow it to work through us, we come out on the other side stronger. We come out on the other side more resilient. We come out on the other side able to talk about it and have conversations about it that can help other people. When we are willing to talk about and work through these things we call emotions and feelings and demons and whatever you want to call them, when we're willing to work through them, we're able to help each other. I've said this before, and I'll continue to say this. You can't help others if you're not dealing with yourself. If you're not sitting down and spending time to work on you, to get better with yourself, whether it's emotionally or physically or anything else, right? If you're not doing it professionally, how in the world can you help other people? Take the time, work these things out, get help, get an accountability partner, get somebody you can talk to on a regular basis. Men especially, we're not very good at talking about our feelings and emotions. This is a hard thing. Continue to work on it. Today, I continue to work on it. It's not comfortable for me sometimes to talk about my feelings and emotions, but I'm working on it, and I continue to work on it. And I'm thankful for the people in my life that allow me to have these conversations with them, that allow me to tell them that I love them, male, female. It doesn't matter who you are in my life. I want them to know that I love them and I care for them. And so if you're in my life and you haven't heard me say that, I'm telling you now, I love you and I care for you. And I want you to know that I'm here. If you need anything, if you want to talk, if you want to have a conversation, that's what the Red Book is about. It's about understanding this emotional side. It's about coming to grips with it. It's about learning how to deal with it. It's about learning how to work through it.